Morning everyone, so another day, another vlog, and I am heading out to Westfield in Shepherd's Bush. As I've been told, there's something really interesting going on down there. So we'll get in the car, or we are in the car, we'll get down there and we'll see what's up. Okay, so I'm at the pop-up store here at Westfield in Stratford. So Fully Charged are here doing a talk and like a Q&A with people who are interested in making the switch to electric, or who already have and maybe are considering a new Renault. So we'll go in and I'll show you around what they've got here. So as you walked in, the first thing you saw was the all-new Renault 5. This was a European car, pretty much the same as what we've seen in Geneva. So I'll post a link to the video so you can check that out up here. We've then got the Scale Electrics kit with the two Renault 5s on there, and some information from What Car about how the new Scenic beats the Tesla Model Y. Speaking of the Scenic, we had it on full display. A lot of the crowd here were people who have already made the switch to EVs, very much committed to the cause, as it were. So they were really appreciative of some of the innovations that this car brought to the market, and so much so it's won the European Car of the Year. So as we sort of move around, we had the cafe behind us, which was serving all sorts of pastries and teas and coffees, which I took full advantage. We also had the opportunity to see some of the merchandise which is available to order, and you can order these directly from our parts department in our Weybridge and Aldershot branches. Now if you're wondering why there's a fitting room, it's because this store was formerly that of a Jack Wills store, hence the fitting rooms, hence the wooden flooring. And then this is where we were going to be doing the Q&A. So it's a really interesting watch. It's a long watch, but it's certainly worth watching all the way through. And if you stick around to the end, I've got a little surprise for you. But yeah, as we're sort of coming around now, we're sort of seeing all the skateboards up close. Got Rafale there, Turbo 3E, Gordini. So yeah, some really cool designs on there. And as I said, you can order these through our parts department. I'll put a link to where you can contact them there. So we're now going to go and sit in on a Q&A sort of like discussion session with Imogen and Robert, so that would be really cool.
Sorry, we got involved in a conversation. Strangely, not about opera, ballet or literature, but all my conversations were about battery management systems.
That's surprising. We started, I don't know how many of you were here for the 10 a.m. session. We started off with an approach, which I think is safe to say. We got the train down here this morning, probably meant to do one comparing. We had a lovely coffee,
Yeah.
and a lovely chat at the back shop. So really, I suppose the purpose of this is to, if you have questions, we can share some of our experiences from these usual card behind us. And that's really that's cool of it.
Formal, but yes, there's certainly questions. I mean, the thing that I would quickly say at the top is, having driven the Scenic, I was, we imagine now, between us driven a hell of a lot of cars. I've driven a lot, and as the more I've driven, I think the worse I get at being able to make a television program about cars. I just seem to, and Jack is so brilliant, Jack is so good with design and the look. I don't know, I just look at it and go, it's a car. I look at 4 wheels, look some doors. But I think I can judge it from a lay person's experience of driving it quite effectively, and that car is beautifully easy to drive and incredibly well. It's the next generation driver assistance software. You don't even know that the software is assisting you, but it is. And I think that's the thing that really impressed me, really, was how subtle and clever that stuff is, and how you can get in that car straight away and then you can go as you're driving, there's 4 things that help me, and that's really clear. I know where I'm going, and I can see how fast I am, and all that very, very simple, clear stuff. And I think that's we got a conversation earlier on today. We're not around that driver interaction with the car is can be incredibly frustrating and annoying, or quite simple. And I'd say that was on the simple end of the spectrum.
And that's something that when we turn up to do these car reviews, invariably you have less than a day. So you read the car for the first time, get in the car for the first time, need to get familiar with it, need to close up the cameras, need to have all of your pieces of cameras prepared, need to have come to some sort of conclusion quite quickly. And it's something is even wrong with that, and is just cognitively a bit much. You really feel it really acutely. So as much as you don't get those of those at time, I think the things that are not good become very quickly, and that is particular in an area where it's the make or break of good or bad.
I mean, one of the ones is audio navigation. So navigation is, so there's a voice. It's usually a woman's voice. Turn left, roundabout. That's fine. I don't particularly like it personally, but I completely get that that's a perfectly legitimate thing and does help people. But when you're recording something while you're driving and suddenly it goes, stop, stop, hang on. That's what I go and go, I had to stop the voice. And I think I'm old, I'll get one of the camera crew, they're young, they come in, oh, there we go. Oh God, look, it's easy. And they take a long time to do it. When someone who's under 30 can't work out touchscreen software, they can't work out where the voice is coming from. That's a bad plus. And I'm not going to mention the car, wasn't a Renault, where the camera guy helped and we turned it off. Oh, thank God, we got it off. Okay, let's start again. Start the cameras, they're following the car, they're filming the car. As I'm pulling out of the lay-by, turn right, left, and this was like the Terminator. This was the Terminator and navigation voice. We could not kill it. We could not stop it. It was just she was determined to do it. In the Renault, there's a button and it's got a little speaker sign. You go beep, and that's off. It's like so simple. Anyone can do it. Why is it going to be so difficult? Sorry, that's a little bit.
No, I think justified. And whilst no restricted Renault buyers yet, we did that place this year. So we can only really share first impressions, of which I imagine most people will have already. But we're so excited about this car, and we were having a conversation earlier, and I think we are seeing many cars re-emerge. The most recent one we've seen probably before with re-merged, which has caused a lot of upset, safe to say. But it has been the complete antithesis of that with the Megane 5. There's so many different generations, so completely excited by it. And if you haven't sat in it already, it is truly extraordinary. Get in, it's had the noise and meter way down, and it feels so cozy, it feels so calm. You have to say it in Geneva Motor Show, which is where we first reviewed it. It's busy, it's stressful, it's hot, you're elbowing other journalists out of the way to get in and shut the door and have this moment. I was with our video Chris. We just sat there and had a little like, so you glorious.
But I mean, that's a brilliant example. It's a really good example of. It's really nothing to do with the technology in the vehicle. It's to do with the marketing and the way it's pitched. Because the Ford Capri, the new Ford Capri, might be a really good electric car. I have no idea. There's no reason for it to be an absolute disaster. But the effects have. I mean, to be fair, a good word. It is ultimate car nerds. It is sort of the general public. But it is such a bad idea to call a car that looks like 90% like every other compact SUV, but then call it the name of an icon. And I thought, I'll be honest, I thought the Capri, the original Capri, my brother, who's a massive petrol head, absolutely loved it, and he had one, and he thought it was. I've never been a big fan, but it doesn't look like the original Ford Capri.
Does it surprise you what people get wrong, what people get wrong?
Well, that's kind of a surprise, yeah. And this, I mean,
I'm going to say this was anyway, so you've defended the people that love it, which
yeah. That did like it. Yeah.
So, what are the touch points that you think people get wrong? This, for me, I've seen your review of this, it looks great. My son's going to love it because it's my high cruise at the hand.
Right.
But For me, it's things like bigger toilets in the front that
Yeah.
I give up. And that matters to me because I ground charge because I live in London. I know the right driveway. What do you think people? Why do it seems that you and after what do you find it so easy to go? Well, it's here. How do they get this things next week?
I mean, there must be. I mean, you've got to imagine the amount of hours that teams at Ford, huge company, have discussed. Do we call it the freeze or the you know, you think that there'll be someone there that
And I know how
go and internally go,
Mustang.
I know that it looks great, and it doesn't look like the Capri. Why don't you call it something else?
I think I used to work with Lynn earlier, and it blows my mind that a car can be made. It is truly extraordinary. It makes sense. Yeah, you have thousands of people doing thousands of different things, and somehow all of those things come together and a car comes out. And I think sometimes things, they get it completely right. I think other times you get certain architectures which, they're having to make compromises across a number of different vehicles, either from a cost perspective, efficiency perspective. And so sometimes, you're not always going to get everything in one day. I think the difference that we notice between good cars and excellent cars are ones who are able to kind of zoom out from that ecosystem that they live within that car organisation, and to put on their Captain Obvious hat. The Captain Obvious hat of, is it annoying to go 2 levels deep in a menu? Or actually, have we thought about who does Joe Blogs in the street, how do they interact with this? And I think some companies don't necessarily realise the real critical importance of that seamless user experience. And I think especially when there is a younger generation of drivers who have a far, not even a tolerance for ideas. So that's a really long-winded way of saying I can see how some car companies are so absorbed in that work, it becomes very difficult to take a step out, put on Captain Obvious and see what people want. But
actually, Max has to go on the boot floor for cable titles. And charge ports at the front.
Yeah. Well, these things, I always remember the Twizy, a Renault product, just real, which had a cable in the car that was, and it was only a 3-pin plug, and I've never caused so much, even as an ex-stand-up comic, I got more laughs driving a Twizy than I ever did on a station, which says quite a lot about my stand-up comedy. But it's just the most ridiculous car. But that, I just went, why don't they all have that? Why don't they have a cable? Because it's massively big and complex, and it has, it's really.
But Amway still has that.
Oh, is it actually still?
But it's annoying that in fact, we pull it out very easily, but it doesn't have the rule or go back in, so we have to then coil it in.
Oh, right.
Yeah. But useful.
Well, like a vacuum cleaner. I think that's the technical term. Has anybody else got a brilliant question?
B2Gs in my comment book.
B2G.
Is there anybody yet and come up with a plugins like B2G system anywhere in the world that for a household? I mean,
I mean, they have.
Because yours was high.
Yeah.
Putting all that, you were there in the data.
Yeah.
And I hate to be on the cost folks, but
And it also, I don't have like car for it, so that was for Chadmo for the Nissan Leaf. Yes, specifically, and it wasn't the Nissan Leaf I got was too old.
the Swedish doesn't weigh with the time, but doesn't weigh. That's all one.
Yeah.
Or maybe.
I mean, that I think eventually it will. I think that's been to golf.
So I'm sure one of the Renault experts in the room knows the Renault side will be is bi-directional. I think you need to get the Renault charger.
Okay.
So there's a lot of right hard right willingness to do it and to hear about it. It's an issue. Maybe it's still a challenge because ISO 151 best friends, which is where it's communication with that.
I've tried to. I've heard you say, ISO 151. That's nice.
So from a purely technological interface, the mechanics of it instead, the communication protocol, there's still some. But once that is and I'm looking soon, so they know. Once that is kind of next to the same, which shouldn't be too far away, I think that would be the real key to unlocking the CLB.
So you mean there that to try and get this feedback in and see?
It's the communication between charger and plug. And just if everyone's familiar with these,
The concept.
electrons back and forth to environment. So more and more car companies with bi-directionally capable still need ISO 15118-20 to like fully get all the ticks in the box. So this is bi-directional. As soon as I say 15118-20, and you have the Renault charger.
Need a Renault. Okay.
It's good to go.
Like I said, I'm not hugely short, something like that, not hugely interested in a sporting group, but I would like to know using apps. Is that fundamentally different vehicles to apps?
No, I don't think so. No, I mean, I think that's far more likely to happen. I think vehicle to grid is a really big step. So the only people we know, that I know, I'm sure there are other experiments that do the tests that have been done in Utrecht, which now they've got now 1,000 vehicles that are bi-directional, but they go into their chargers, so they control the whole thing. So they have a control room that can take 1 or 2 or 3 kilowatt hours out of each of their 1,000 cars at peak time, and they sell that electricity for a lot of money. They make money out of it. How they can't fund their
So does the
project.
vehicle to power require this /20 thing?
That is a good question. I
think it
does.
does. I think it does.
Because the protocol at the moment, you're only anticipating that it goes one way. So you still need that communication protocol to say, no, go back the other way. I can see how that
I was going to say that there's a voltage of vehicle to home, which is vehicle to high load. So vehicle to load, where essentially you can pump out 7 to 11 kilowatts. Yeah, exactly. So I think Zappi or Octopus with the own charger. What's that?
Zappi definitely.
They did bi-directional charging, but it was only the vehicle to load in terms of it won't intelligently power the home, but it will just power if there's a load present. So if your battery is topping up, you can charge it directly, but it won't cleverly go back and forth between your battery's low or top it up from the grid. So it's almost there.
So I do think this is like really an interesting juncture in this regard, because you've got obviously car companies, cars, some do obviously their own chargers, home energy, no home energy, and this vehicle to grid scenario. It's like, well, actually, if I was a car company, they're so understand their customers, understand the user experience. I'd bring out home battery like Tesla. I'd bring out an intelligent control. I think it's an interesting.
You're better off buying one of these gallons than you are buying 5 barrels.
Yeah.
Respect.
Oh, it makes tremendous amount of sense. And I think it's also to do with it's actually the maturity, not the maturity of the technology, the maturity of our understanding of what these batteries do. So 20 years ago, genuinely, no one had a clue what would happen if you put 10,000 phone batteries in a car. No one knew. People who made the batteries didn't know. The people who designed the packaging didn't know. I've talked to them. They said we hoped that they would last a few years. We had no idea. Because, they know that a phone battery, which is charged to 100%, they drain to nothing again and again, and is tiny and has no buffers and has very simple software operating it. They know how long they last.
2 years.
So no one knew with this until now. We kind of know, and we know that it's not going to damage the battery and charging up and discharging it up at the levels that you would to a house. It's like you're in a traffic jam moving like that. It's not using a lot of power. It's not accelerating your power. It's a hard motor.
So I was going to say very quickly from the sort of cost perspective. We went and filmed a company called Lightship, who are based in Denver, Colorado. And they have this electric RV that's got loads of solar panels on the roof. It's obviously in the US. Because of that solar, you can get those new IRA credits for it. It's got these from a 6 power piece of work for the energy storage within it. And obviously it's home. So when you really do the maths, technically get a home office if you have it optimally priced. You've got a V to G or V to home enabling thing. You've got loads of solar. The maths really quickly stacks up why you would get one of those, which has a whole load of capability over and above 6 power. So It's an interesting.
I mean, it's just that thing when I didn't know before I started talking about electric cars and interviewing people who run, how come make cars, people who know about that world. I didn't know anything really, but you know, when you get told again and again and again, oh, well, you know, the amount of time that any individual who owns a car and uses that is actually using that car between 5 and 6%, and you go, no, what do you mean? You mean so that 94% of the time you own a car, it's sitting there doing nothing, and you go, that is the most insane use of an expensive, complicated piece of technology that's ever, and that's become normal. You know, and I always like to make the analogy, I heard Tom when I was doing it, so if an airline company had used their aircraft, that was 5% of the time they would be bankrupt before they took off. You know, we're so stupid. You know, we've kind of entered this world of utter ridiculous waste where we spend all this money on a vehicle and we use it 5% of the time. Just
But then if this becomes part of our energy.
yes, then it starts to have a role. You know, that's really the thing that I find attractive. It's that and car sharing. So when we went to Utrecht to see what they were doing with electric cars, with car sharing, where those cars were using way more money to put them 5% of the time, and were surviving, and the people who liked using them. And, you know, we talked to one couple. They sold their Tesla Model X, not because they were a wealthy couple. It wasn't because of that. It was because having access to 5 or 6 different cars within 100 meters of their home is much better. It's a better experience. They enjoyed it more. It was much less hassle. They didn't have to pay for parking their Model X. There was nowhere to park on a narrow medieval Dutch street. No. When you talk to them, you go, gosh, that's quite a sensible thing.
Well, that's another pinch point for me, which I think, charging over pavement. So I don't have a driveway.
Right.
I use a cable protector and grounding charge. I've been ground charging across the pavement with an extension lead for 8 years. I'm an event technician, familiar with how to draw too much electricity.
Right.
Okay, but we've got to help people charge at home. You don't have. You don't have.
Yeah.
I mean, it must be. The guy around the corner from me got the ticket the other day because he probably didn't have a cable protector or using a carpet over it. Lots of people charge over the pavement in West London. Lots of people walk around the block and see it in the time. And the council won't put cable gully for me.
Yeah.
They say it, and the way I do it is safer than, frankly, every second paving stone.
Which is lifted up.
And also, the council on the street, every 5th lamppost is a council charger, really good council people. I could go with 20 lampposts around my block like it wasn't like anymore.
Right.
And trip up twice as many people as I would with my cable run it, every protector across the pavement outside my house.
Yeah.
So I haven't got a ticket, but what are we going to progress that?
So
You'd be shown.
I have a similar set because I live in a Victoria Terrace, and at the moment it's fantastic because the students aren't there. So we can park outside our house, but typically it's.
My mates are really helpful these days after 8 years. They never do ask.
Well, yes.
But you know, you don't need to charge. Sorry, I digress. I can put in 60 miles overnight. That's one of my wife's longer commutes.
Yeah.
So mostly I can charge twice a week.
Yeah.
So I can get me park outside your house twice a week. That's enough to keep me park it out for you.
I think there's a couple of things. I think first of all, you're absolutely right. We need really clear communication with council and for them to really understand where it is and isn't agreements. In Oxford, really fortunately, there is a mega charger hub because they recognise that it is. They've got this absolutely enormous fast charging hub. I'll come back to cost in a second because that's the whole other. So they recognise that as an interim solution, we need to have that. We need that to exist slightly on the outskirts of town, but also reasonably convenient. For myself, that is a game changer because I've definitely shared that story before. But if I go there before a shoot, I'll get there, I'll do my makeup in the car, I'll do a meeting in the car, it's very handy. If I do it at the end of the day, I'll park there and play Race to Charging, which is, I've got 38 minutes to get from 20 to 90% or whatever. I'll see if I can run 4 miles in that time. It's great. I recognise that I am really benefiting from living in Oxford in that regard. But I think it's destination charging that's got to be, every workplace should have charging. Every gym, every supermarket. Yeah,
That's still second best to waking up in the morning and go,
As you can't, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
No,
And-
I mean,
yeah, your rates of charge, well, what your cost.
I just want to quickly say this, the government statistics are that 60% of UK households have off-street parking, which I'm surprised at. I would have thought it was much lower than that, 60%. In the Netherlands, it's 22%. So it's much, much lower in the Netherlands. It's much more than that. But my argument is there is there are 60% of households that have no excuse at all not to have an electric car. You know, why haven't they all got them? There's probably 5% of that 60%.
Is this what your plan is going trying to go hiking because they don't have houses that drive in it?
Look.
Really, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there would be people that would argue that. Where they get their hydrogen from is natural gas, and they're importing the natural gas and they're stripping out natural gas. That's where the hydrogen comes from. So I know I'm going to have a massive row about this tomorrow.
Free with hydrogen.
But I think of the cost, and yeah, I think there's like a huge, really councils to be really, really engaged and for it to work. And there are nifty solutions like one that's like the window on the gully, there's things like bedding, you know, people that's.
But I think we've got to go beyond the cane.
Yeah.
You know, that's the route. So when you see induction charging that works, which, for instance, in Oslo, amazing. There's a taxi there that's done. I think coming up to 200,000 a day, never ever been plugged into anything. It's never had a plug in it.
Is it really going to happen?
Well, I mean, that was an experiment. As Jaguar high cases, they're taxis and they have specific areas. So like there's a run up to the airport where the taxis are. It's all induction charging. So as they move forward, they're charging all the time. There's outside hotels, there's outside train station, there's specific places. So it works for taxis. I mean, it technically works, and you it's not, you don't see it.
It's an increased cost to festival.
Massive cost. You imagine to install that at every space on your
grading it every 5 years is no, it costs. You know.
But
There's been a question before.
No, that one's different. I was just thinking how much heat and other things are lost.
it's quite an efficient process. Oh, okay.
But
So
there was another question.
I'm very happy to be corrected, but when I went to see induction charging, and I'm trying to remember the company, Austral E-Tech, I can't remember the company that did it. They did a comparison between a copper cable and induction charging. The induction charging is something around 2 or 3% more efficient, less energy wasting.
Oh, really?
That's what they say. So I didn't build it. I didn't do the tests.
I do think it's time for us to revisit this as a question, and especially I think a really obvious use case is for disabled car players.
Yeah.
Like the amount of traffic that.
So disabled parking charge.
Should have induction
Yeah.
charging.
I mean, that was one of the things that I'd never even thought about, but when we went to the new charging hub, Greek surcharging hub at Gatwick, and I got out of my car and just plugged it in, and then we talked to him and we went to see this, and we talked about it, and then I realised, trip over. Because I am supremely good when there's a bump stop, I now know what it's for. 98% of the time I'll trip over the bump stop and I'm not disabled. So they just taken the bump stops away. They put big pillars, if you drive too far back, you'll smash into the pillar, not the charger. Pretty clear. And then they've got a big area around the disabled charging bays with no bump stops, so you can get out in a wheelchair, you can move around, maybe you can plug your car in. I mean, you go, that's a really little change. And bump stops, I think, are designed by men under 30 that have got laptops and a lot of hair, and they're now beginning to really.
Pete, you have another question.
So, my other question was going back a little bit to the conversation around vehicle to grid, and whether there's like a conflict between potential future of autonomous vehicles and vehicle to grid, and whether you think if autonomous vehicles do become ubiquitous, whether vehicle to grid becomes obsolete because of that.
Ooh. I think.
I don't think it does, but anyway, you know.
Yeah, I don't think it does become obsolete because where are autonomous vehicles going to exist? They will exist between like possibly major cities, and there'll be like major powers. I don't think. Sorry, let's rewind. I don't think we will personally own fully autonomous vehicles. I know that you said. Man in California would have you believe otherwise on October the 8th. But I don't think we'll personally. And I think if we don't own them, they are these sort of growing things. Actually, I think the opportunity to live on the grid increases because it can be slightly more
Central. Oh.
yeah, and like much more sort of intuitively responding to renewable energy, and like peaks and time and all that kind of thing. So I think it maybe even makes it easier because it's not having to contend with human anxieties around getting somewhere all the time.
And it certainly removes the complexities of on the street charging and all that stuff. Because you come out of your house with your foggy phone that you'll keep in shoot and compare to them. And the thing falls out and you get it and it drives away. You don't need to worry about charging. But though I think the clue with autonomous vehicles or non-owned vehicles is the American school bus revolution, which is really fascinating. What's happening now at an increased rate. So there are, I don't know how many, something like there's 17,000. No, there's more. Hundreds of that. There's a lot. I think there's somewhere around 10,000 have been converted to electric, but they are very specifically designed to operate as vehicle to grid on an industrial level. So if you had 100 school buses, they have like 150 kilowatt hour batteries. They do run in the morning, and they pick up the kids, and they go to school, they drop the kids off, they go back to base, and they do nothing. I'm talking diesel buses. They parked in the base, they do nothing all day, then they come out at 3 o'clock and they take the return and blah, 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 and that's there. So their routes are so specifically understood, set, the timing. So the rest of the time they're doing nothing. While the battery ones are charging in the daytime from wind and solar. They're discharging at night, making a fortune for the local authorities. The reason they can do it is because they're federally owned, not state owned. So the federal government has said we're going to change all these buttons to electric drive, and now there's a huge movement of kids within that that are communicating with Indians going, get your local bus to get me electric, it's really cool, look at this, I'm at the back of this brilliant video, you can try and find it on YouTube, but kids they're going, nothing's happened to me!
London, I don't think you're going to go London buses.
We want to, yeah.
I've noticed there's some fully electric some buses.
There's 1,200 now. 1,200 fully electric BYD made in China, double-decker electric buses. I want to go to there's two plants. There's one in Notting Hill, not far from here, where they charge them. They've got amazing chargers, and it's getting permission and getting access. We want to.
Those of you had your hand up, no place for me.
Yeah. So I was thinking, starting right from the beginning, so walking through this. Car companies know their customers. They also
Sorry, say that last bit.
car companies know their customers and love ways to have them thought that and also.
Right.
Because my view I've worked in gas.
Yeah, we know each other. Yeah.
And aerodynamics department.
Yeah, we know each other.
Is that most people buying and driving a car do with a crack ladder session there. What they want to do is live their lives in exactly the same way as they did before. They don't want to think across the cable, they don't want to be thinking about charging, they don't want to be getting all sorts of maps in their phones and working out how to use this particular charging station which they've never seen. What they want is their lives exactly the same. They want to be able to get their kids to where they need to get to and realise they can get burning fuel and fill it up in a couple of minutes and carry it. And ultimately, these are engineers' discussions with a few people who are really interested in it.
Yeah.
The solution ultimately is how do you roll out electric cars with nobody having to change their lives? And where I'm going with this is what you were saying about charging is ultimately the technology change.
Yeah.
That's where you end up, where you can get a funny car in 5 minutes to get your coffee and go, and you've got a couple of 100 miles, 200 miles charging. Your life doesn't change. So if you don't have a drive, their goal is whack into reason. If you do have a drive better, we can actually experience in the chill.
Yeah.
It probably might seem that opportunity to charging is that's a massive number of charges, which will have to be installed, serviced, maintained. And if you have, as petrol companies have been pretty good at cleaning charge petrol stations where they need it, and we've got probably the right number.
Yeah.
If you're just replacing that one, the problem is then just how do you make sure those stations get out This could be, but not necessarily need to be, you know, just can be after
So you're absolutely right, and I was so glad that he said something like, "I know," and then he said, "I was like, I need to go and ask him." So lovely to see again. But also, I think it made me picked up on mine of a place where we used to work, quite a West Midland centric view of the world, and I think not so good at understanding how we get to a point where people do not think about anything, we just get in the car and it just works, it doesn't finish. And I think that is what seamless user experience, a real overused buzzword, actually looks like. And the point on the fast charging, and we are seeing faster and faster charging, both from the chargers themselves, but also technologies like store dots, silicon, solid state lithium. There are huge innovations in both factor management and the batteries, which should enable that super fast charging. We already have the locations. You're absolutely right. Triple storage, triple charging, massive batteries. Again, and then it's getting that current side. But I think ultimately, when we get into this early mainstream, where people don't care so much about technology, and they are unwilling to accept things not being seamless or the technology going wrong in a way that early adopters are, we allow those things for the benefit of being first. And in that instance, I think sadly, a better experience, sadly that's everyone, but money ultimately is all going to be like this. And to your point that you made earlier, I think in my dream La La Land scenario that we are entering into this era of the Internet of Energy, in which case we can see electrons in the same way that we think about our data. So yes, we pay more for our data than we go abroad with our mobile phones, but we don't pay more for our data if we're in Newcastle versus Southampton, for example. So actually, if we can get towards this ecosystem where we can think of this unit of electrons, and actually we pay for fast charging almost like a credit out of our total amount of electricity that we use, and can be way more innovative with how we think of it as a commodity and interact with it and generate it ourselves. I personally believe that's where things get really, really exciting, and that unlocks that kind of distributed energy, what would be the word? Being prosumers. I always hate that word, but yeah, I think that's where we can get to that stage where then people don't have to think about anything. And actually think
that when do you think it gets?
A great question. Mine.
It's a 5 years time.
Yeah. Well, I think, and this is why I personally find Reach2 so exciting, because I think it makes that piece of the puzzle more tangible. But it does require some, who's going to capitalize on that opportunity? Is it car companies? Is it energy companies? Is it actually banks who really understand internet like this? Is it mobile companies? I don't know. I think it needs people within that orbit to understand the market opportunity, and at the moment it feels like there's a bit too much inertia. Thus, lots of things going to happen. If I had to wager against Octopus already with their electrical S, they're thinking in that.
I mean, the thing I'd like to pick up on what you said is that people don't want to change, they just want to do exactly what they do now, and they just want to carry on, and do not want anything about it. I totally get that. I also think it's 100% wrong. I think people do change. And I'm not talking about weird engineers and weird nerds like us. I'm talking about normal people. I've never met a normal person. I don't know people, but the vast bulk of people who are that make totally exact. My missus totally gets interested in cars, doesn't give a toss at all, and just doesn't want to ever talk about me. And I'll get back to her in a minute. But for instance, my grandmother went to a little village, a little town street, and she bought cheese there, and she bought meat there, and she went over the road and bought some groceries, and she went down there and got some soap. She put them in a bag that she already owned, and then she walked home with that, or caught the bus home. Now, that has changed beyond recognition. No one does that anymore. It's a real shame, it's a really lovely way of doing it, but no one does it. Everyone goes to the supermarket without a bag, and they buy a fucking bag, and they've got 457,000 bags at home because they don't want to throw them away. So we do change, and then you find out that it's actually better, and this is what my argument is. And it works, is you've got a diesel car and it's fine, don't get rid of it, keep it, never ever tell anyone to buy an electric car, and they've got a second-hand diesel, and they've got 3 kids, and I said, just think for a moment that your car's running and your kids are standing behind it and they're breathing in what you're burning. is that something you don't ever want to change? You don't want to think about it. Do think about that. They do think about it. They know about the little girls in South London who were the first human being on the planet to have died from air pollution. There is another side to this argument, and that's what's crushed really cleverly with a lot of money by the fossil fuel industry. And they do get angry about it, and they are liars, and they are in control of our lives, and we're totally dependent on them. I want to fight them as hard as I can. But one last thing, my missus, how does she sell electric cars? Because she's so annoying. She's done quite well. She's in a reading group, 8 women. And I only heard this last year when it came back. She didn't say anything. And what Lucy said, I asked Julie years ago about your cars. I said, is this Robert's special? And I said, I don't fucking know, it's just a fucking car. Got straight there. And so, how do you charge? What do you mean, how do you charge your fucking phone? Fucking phone with it. She's gone there to talk about poetry, literature, nothing else. That 4 of them out of that 8 have electric cars. So she sold 4 cars to 8 people. I've never done that. I've got nothing.
People change their behaviour because it's more convenient.
Yeah.
People say they will change their behaviour better to the
Yeah. Or also, I think people want to catch up to you. If you take mobile phones and make answer, early mobile phones, if you change the mobile phone, it's a big nightmare. And I'm scared about losing data and all that. And that's progressively the data. Mobile phones are usually got to a level now where what is it on your phone that's actually better? Whereas before, there were fundamental things that made life
Huge changes.
big changes, massive changes. And hopefully that will happen with the same electric ecosystem.
I was going to say, one thing you have noticed is we used to be able to get a week's charge out of our phone, and now we charge it every day, and we just adopted that, no problem.
Yeah. You know, if it was 2 hours, it would be a bit fast, but a day, well, that's overnight, isn't it? So what the hell?
But especially there's total consensus in that it would be wonderful if everyone, we get everyone over the line from a purely subconscious perspective. And obviously, like, there's a huge percentage of the population that are motivated by that. But I think ultimately it has to get to, it is a better experience. And whether that better experience is because it's cleaner or because it's more convenient, that's how we win in the hearts and minds and what it's ideas. Sort of, we chatted in the train, so I was telling Ross that I went for a holiday and I had a diesel car. And it was a really enlightening experience because I didn't even think about driving electric. Going back skiing, well, suddenly I was driving this used to don't really know where I was, trying to have conversations with my friend, follow some direction, place in a car where I had to change gears. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to use my brain this hard for a little while. And I think that was quite useful as an experience. Like, is it hands down a more convenient?
Yeah.
So you got to find a petrol station. I mean, I haven't been to a petrol station for 80 years.
No.
I don't think you thought about it. Try hiring an electric car and return full. Yes, really.
Yeah.
Most of them give you about, so like they give you 80% and say bring it back 80%.
I've
Yeah.
done it in Australia a lot, and I've always taken about sort of 8. Yeah. I've never been in charge of it.
We've had the times ago where you've very patiently waited for the question.
It was just a couple of things. The first thing was the Austral study. The really cool thing about the Austral study in the VTG is that they realised that when you're taking energy out of the car, because if you're controlling the process, you're actually being kinder to the battery than if you put your foot down and you're driving. And so what they also realised is that they could condition the battery in the same way that you control how you charge the battery. If you're drawing it out now through a V2G system, you can control how you're discharging it, and that helps condition it. And they actually found that they could eke out another % or 2 or reduce the degradation. And that was an unexpected kind of benefit. But I think the thing that is really worth remembering is that we look at the headline number and like 20-25% of new car sales are EVs. We're not even at 2% of cars on the road and EVs.
No.
We were at smartphones at 2% penetration of the population in the early 90s. And that's where we are in EVs. But when we look at how mature the technologies and the speed it's moving at, you can imagine the ISO gets settled within the next year. And what Renault's doing with the 5 is mind-blowing. Because like the first people are coming in with a V2G car at under 25,000 euros or pounds. And that's going to be incredible. But back to something that you were saying earlier, the thing I don't understand why more car companies aren't becoming energy companies. I used to be an auto investor. I got to look after quite a bit of money. I couldn't help myself. I ran to the head of NEO in Europe, and I was chatting away to her. And no one asked her in an open forum a question, so I pulled her on the side. And I said to her, you have all these battery banks, and they're storing batteries, and you're putting energy in them. And I asked her, how much money are you making? She said, we are making so much money. It's such a profitable business to have these battery changing banks that are full of batteries that are sitting there and acting like virtual power plants that are making money for NEO, as well as having a car business.
I think NEO is definitely moving this and making this a bit of an again. Is an interesting thing about that ownership of the battery as an asset. And we visited VinFast a few years ago, and I know there's varying views on leasing a battery separately from a car. But how sensible is that? They own the battery. That is your stationary storage. They also have wind farms and solar farms. Like this puzzle makes complete sense. It's really, really cool. And I just think it's an astonishing function that's so nerdy and fascinating.
I mean, it's the oil companies who get all the subsidies. It's the oil companies who get all the profit. The car companies have the big risk. They have the big capex. They have the contact point with the customer. They also get lumbered with the emotional baggage of, oh, your car creates pollutants.
It's your fault.
And spews carbon. And it's like, no, we're just trying to move people around.
Yeah.
But they don't make anywhere near the profit. And the opportunity to shift that completely upside down and remove that dependency from oil has never been clearer.
It's really good that you haven't read it already called Simon Gavin of the actually pilot what am I trying to say? Janice from it just goes through these like 10 different really, really interesting business cases, how they've kind of almost made thinking environmentally really profitable, made it work, and it's just really recommended.
I'd like to stay in it all day. I'm not allowed to do this in my kitchen. Sorry.
I want to think, we sometimes film at your house, and on the shoot days that we film at your house, we factor into the schedule an additional hour and a half for conversation with you. That's really great. Oh yeah, it's quite good to start there.
That's very good. Thank you very much for joining us. You're very nice. And I can't wait to try the brand of fights.
So I've got back from my trip to Westfield earlier today. It was actually really interesting listening to that, hearing people talking about electric, not just from what it's like to buy and charge and so on, but things like insurance and warranties and vehicle to grid and all those many other things that are associated with driving electric. Now, you'll probably notice that I'm not sat in the car I started the day in. So what we're going to do, we're going to get that open because I've now got to finish what I started in the first place, which is filming this thing. So you're going to want to get subscribed, click the bell icon so you get notified when I load this video up. I've got work to do. I'm Max, this is SMC Motor Group. I'll see you in the next one.